Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by the great folks over at Wendy's. Frozen pucks are awesome when they're in the back of the other guy's net, but that doesn't mean that you'd want to eat one. And that's why Wendy's only ever uses fresh Canadian beef that's never seen the inside of a freezer in all of their burgers. Whether you order a Baconator, Dave Single, or even a JBC, you'll only ever find real fresh beef that's juicy and loaded with fresh toppings. So download the Wendy's app, check out the latest deals, and order a burger that's only job is being delicious. My name is Dave Guidrelli. Joining me is Harman Dial on this sunny, hot Friday afternoon in Vancouver. Grady Sass is our technical producer. He is the man at the controls. Josh Bloom is going to join us in a matter of moments, and I'm very excited for that. Harman, right before we came to air, I was telling you, have you ever spoken with Josh Bloom? You said no. I said, well, I have. We've had him on the show before, and he is a good talker, and I am very excited for it. He was a great guest last time we had him, and I'm excited to have him back.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to ask him about just the journey that he had this year, sort of playing for three different teams, winning the Memorial Cup. I'm sure he learned a lot about himself through that experience, and excited to get his insight.
All right, and Grady just told us that Josh is here, so he heard that glowing review of his last podcast hit. So now the expectations are high. Josh Bloom, our guest today, is brought to you by our friends over at Four Winds Brewing, more specifically, Velo. If you're looking for an easy drinking beer that will quench your thirst after a day on the ice or on the golf course, Velo is for you. This American Pale Ale was brewed with fresh squeezed lemon juice and pink Himalayan salt. Citrusy and refreshing, Velo is like the sports drink of beers. And at only 4.5%, it won't weigh you down either. You can grab yourself a 6-pack of Velo at select liquor stores across BC or for home delivery through the online shop at fourwindsbrewing.ca. Okay, Josh Bloom joins us now. He just texted and says he doesn't have sound, so we'll work on that. Can you hear us, Josh? You got us? Oh, he doesn't have sound. Okay. Got to go to your settings. You'll figure it out. It's just in your settings there on StreamYard. Little inside baseball for everybody on this show. And we'll work on that.
StreamYard is complicated. I'll tell you,
no.
there are so many occasions where it's like we use this every day, and I'll run into glitches where I'm like, why is my mic not working? Why is my sound not working? So totally understandable.
Do you remember the day, and folks who've watched this show for a while will remember the day where we continuously had to try to reset your mic, and for some reason we couldn't, we ended up figuring it out, but it took a long time. We just had this second mic coming through your laptop, and it just sounded so weird. So
we had to end the stream 10 minutes in.
Or so we thought. I found out later that we were still on air, and people heard me swearing and cursing out StreamYard, which Josh might be doing right now, but he says he's good to go. So let's bring him in. Josh Bloom joins us now. Battled through the technical difficulties, battled for that championship. Josh, you're the owner of a West Coast Express Canucks luchador mask, and now you're a champion as well. Walk us through the past week.
Yeah, it's been a pretty amazing week. Everything's been unbelievable since that night, but just such a special night, such a special moment, and relationships I'll have for the rest of my life. So, yeah, it's still kind of settling in, but feels good to be a champion.
I wanted to ask you just in general about, you played some games in the AHL, played some games in the ECHL, went back to the OHL, 3 different teams. You go on a deep playoff run, win the Memorial Cup. Seems like such a hectic year. How do you reflect on kind of the season that you had and just going through all those experiences?
Yeah, 100%. It was definitely a long season, lots of bouncing around, but learned so much everywhere I went, from Abbotsford to Kalamazoo, back to Saginaw, and getting to incorporate those pro habits and those things that I learned through my time there in pro, and kind of bring it back to junior and just work on my game and be better one day at a time. So, yeah. I think the biggest thing for me this year was just how much I got to learn and how much I know moving forward and going into this summer here.
Of those pro habits, that knowledge that you gained out here, what stands out that you were able to take back to junior and really helped you elevate?
Just wall work, little habits like that, understanding where you need to be on D-zone assignments, and for me, just how heavy you have to play at that next level. I think that heaviness is something that I was missing in my game. Slowly start to incorporate that into junior and looking to bring that into pro next year.
Sort of a two-part question here. First, is there a player in the NHL that you maybe try and model your game after, or that you really admire watching them play? And the second part is, when you look at your own game, what are some of the strengths that you think can translate in your own game to professional hockey?
Yeah, I look at guys like Taylor Hall, who plays with a ton of speed, and he plays a really fast game. And then I also look at a guy like Evgeny Malkin, who has that size and is able to use it. Um, for me, I feel like my biggest strengths are my speed, definitely using my feet and making plays at a high pace. I think something I can bring more of is that physical nature. I think I have the frame to do it, and just need to incorporate that into pro. And again, something that I'm working on. And but yeah, everything in my game starts with my feet and moving them night in and night out.
Okay, we saw you moving your feet on that goal. Just walk us through that goal. I'm sure you could play it back in your head. You probably watched it 100 times. Tell us all about that final goal there.
Yeah, I remember getting onto the ice, and I just had this weird feeling, and I saw Donovan keep that puck in at the line and kind of Euro step that guy, got it to the net, and I saw the goalie have a little bit of trouble with it, so I was like, okay, it's got to be behind him, right? Like, there's nowhere else it could be. So I went, I checked behind him. Their guy slid out, and I got a good piece of it, and saw it right between his head and his arm cross the line, and I snapped out of there. The rest is I blacked out. Rest is history. Can't really remember much from there, and then getting to lift that trophy over my head was a pretty special feeling.
Where does that rank just among, I guess, not even just in hockey, but among the best moments of your life? How does it sort of stack up?
Yeah, it's got to be up there, man. Such a special moment, such a historic moment, and to become Memorial Cup champions off of a play like that, it just doesn't happen, right? It's kind of storybook finish, so it was pretty special.
So what's next for you, Josh? Like, we know you're probably coming out for dev camp for your second dev camp with the Canucks. It's gonna
Yeah,
be your second, right? Okay,
yeah.
so you're coming out for dev camp. What else is new with you? Like, what are you doing this summer?
Yeah, I still feel like I'm in season mode. I gotta get the bumps and bruises right, get the body feeling good again. So I'm gonna take a week here and just get the body right, and then back to work. I'll be out in Vancouver July 1st for development camp, and then just keep getting better day by day, like I said, and come back for main camp ready to go.
What are the big differences you noticed when you got a taste of AHL hockey compared to junior? Because I've talked to players in the past when they make that leap from junior to the AHL, and so many of them say that it's one of the, like, it can be a shell shock, that it's such a massive leap. What did you learn about it, and how can that help you sort of tailor your summer training even?
Yeah, I learned the margin of error in the AHL is very small, and if you make a mistake, it'll end up in the back of your net, and it's your ability to limit those mistakes and understand when you can make plays and when the right time to lay a puck is. So for me, I think I'm going to go through a ton of video this summer with my skills coach, work on different habits along the walls, and understanding when my moment is to make that play and when the moment is to just lay a puck and kind of be on the defensive side of it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because you mentioned heaviness on the puck. Like, how much of that and just finding success at the pro level, like how much of it just comes down to anticipating?
Yeah, I think anticipating has a lot to do with hockey. Wherever you play, doesn't matter the league you're playing in, and guys that can anticipate plays give themselves really good looks and good options. And I think for my game, it's anticipating where the puck's going to be and using my feet to get there. I think that's a big stride I have to take in my game for next season. Is understanding, okay, the puck's coming D to D. Now it's my time to go. I got to get my feet moving. I got to get to that puck. And I think I was a little bit relaxed there when I first started in pro, but it slowly started to come along, and just looking to build off of that.
Okay, off the ice. Final question: who made you feel at home in Abbotsford? What was Abbotsford like for you?
Yeah, Abbotsford was phenomenal. I got to live with Max Sasson, Mark Gatcombe, and Aidan McDonough, and that was just a blast with those guys. Such phenomenal guys and even better hockey players. So that was a real treat to live with them. And the whole team, the whole organization just made me feel such at home. And really looking forward to get back there and get to work. Obviously, wasn't able to stick out the whole season this year, but that's the plan for next.
Now, was that the house that was referred to as the frat house? Because we had
Yeah,
Aiden on
that's
the show. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was making sure. Yeah, we had him on the show and he told us that was called the frat house because all those guys went to
yeah.
college. So, yeah, good stuff, Josh. We always appreciate having you on, and we'll see you at Dev Camp.
I really appreciate it, guys. Take it easy.
There he is, Josh Bloom, friend of the show. If you come on twice, You're a friend of the show. That was his second hit on the show. So we appreciate it. We appreciate Josh Bloom coming out and joining us. Much appreciated. Okay, Harm, big news. We've got big news. And it's big news because yesterday people saw it. People saw it on Twitter. I got engaged, proposed to who will now be referred to as Mrs. Quads on the show. She knows that and she's good with that. Farhan Lalji threw that out there. I like that a lot. Mrs. Quads.
I like that.
Ring to it. It's got a good ring to it, right? Yeah. Grady, I think we have one photo. We'll just show one photo quickly. And people were asking me how I did it. So I'll quickly explain how I did it because people saw the photo. We got some nice photos. And I had some people wondering like, oh, did she know? Like if you had a photographer, she must have known about it. No, this is what I did, Harman. I'll tell you, I'll try and keep it as tight as possible, but I was working on this plan for months and I cooked up a hell of a plan. She didn't know it was coming. She was totally surprised. So basically what happened was she's with her best friend and I worked really close with her on this. They have days every like month or so where they go get their nails and their hair done. So one of these days was yesterday. They went and did that. And then afterwards they hang out. They went to a cidery. I picked that place. They went to this cidery in Langley and that was all normal. And then her cousin, who's also her best friend, suggested, hey, why don't you tell David to come pick us up? And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll come pick you up. So I was just there to pick them up. But then they're like, hey, it's really nice. You should stop, have a drink and take some photos. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. So all of this seemed like it was coming from them to me. Okay, that was like quadception is what I'm going to start calling that. So anyways, we go and as we're taking photos, I'm in a fire fit, as you know. Also, I need to thank you because you helped me pick the jacket that I wore. You helped me get the whole outfit going. And I kid you not, Mrs. Quads right after this told me, she's like, this is the nicest outfit you've ever worn, ever. And I was just like, I texted you. I was like, Harman's always got nice jackets. I want a nice jacket. So I got myself a nice jacket. And there you go. There's the end result. Me down on a knee in a fire blue jacket. I like that jacket a lot. Got it done. She said yes. Now I can finally exhale because I'm not very good at keeping secrets. And I was very, very, very antsy about that because there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes and I couldn't talk to her about any of it, of course. So I'm happy to have that off my chest.
Dude, I'm so excited for you. So proud. It was so fun working on the outfit together, just like texting back and forth and being like that jacket with that shirt, with these shoes, with these pants. It was a blast. And honestly, the whole plan, even in the couple weeks leading up to it, you walking me through, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I've devised the plan. I was like, this guy is a straight up genius. So you best believe that I'm going to be turning to you for help with this kind of stuff further down the road.
Hey man, if anybody needs help with planning out a proposal, this one went extremely well. I gotta say, I thought there'd be like a hiccup or two, or that she might be onto the scent, like right up to it. And I'll show you the video because the video's a little all over the place. Her friend was rotating it because she was taking photos while recording a video. But anyways, we won't play the video, but I'll show you the video. It's awesome. She was totally shocked, and it was it was the greatest moment of my life, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm happy to be an engaged man heading into the summer and into next season. And now I get to plan a wedding, which I'm into it for one day, and it is a hell of a task. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, hey, you got Faber to lean on for that part at least.
That's true. Yeah, I've been asking a lot of my friends who have recently had weddings about different things that they had happen and what we could avoid. But anyways, let's not talk anymore about that. We've got a lot of stuff to get to out of nowhere, it seems. Harm, let's start on Nikita Zadorov. Both of these news nuggets that we're going to talk about, they're more rumors, but both of them coming from today's edition of 32 Thoughts. Elliot Friedman speaking about Nikita Zadorov, and with Zadorov, Friedman saying that he thinks Zadorov is willing to take a discount in Vancouver. Here is the whole quote. I just believe Zadorov has a number, and it might actually be a little less than he could get on the open market to stay in Vancouver. I don't think Vancouver is far away from it, but I don't think they've hit it. We don't need to get into anything else, Harm. I think we can keep this pretty short. The main question that everybody's going to have is, what does the number look like? Where we've heard that Nikita Zadorov and the Canucks are on the same page on term, which you assume means the Canucks are willing to pay Nikita Zadorov for 5 to 6 years. What does that number look like? A discounted number for Nikita Zadorov. Clearly the Canucks aren't at it yet, but what do you think that number might be?
I'll be honest, I don't know, because maybe he believes he can get 6x6 on the open market, and a discount is maybe 5.5 times 6, which would still be a really steep price, would still be a number that you have to think twice about and really ponder. Whereas, who knows, maybe there's a scenario where that number in his camp's mind for what Zadorov can get on the open market, maybe it's 5.5, and maybe the discounted version is 5 million, which now all of a sudden you're getting to the territory where it's like 5 times 5, or 5 million times 6 years is still a lot, but it's not a crazy number anymore. Now you can at least seriously consider it. So that those are a couple of the scenarios that sort of come to mind in terms of what he thinks he could get on the open market versus what a slight discount might be. Um, the discrepancy still matters a lot.
Yep. I'm a little skeptical, to be honest with you. Not skeptical of Friedman's reporting, like nothing like that. I'm just saying I'm skeptical because this seems like it's all in the mind of Zadorov's camp, right? Like, okay, well, this is what we could get on the open market. The Canucks might believe, no, you can't. Like, the Canucks might believe that if they go to the open market, you're not going to get this number. You're actually going to get the number that you're telling us is a discount, and we want to see, and we'll take you to free agency and circle back, right? Maybe we'll get there. I don't know if we'll get there. I'm just guessing. I'm just saying that these negotiations are very complicated, and that a discount doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, that's going to be a super team friendly number that the Canucks are extremely happy with. Because honestly, if it was, they'd have already signed him, right? So we'll see what that discount actually looks like, and if the Canucks are willing to meet Zadorov there. Okay, so yeah.
I also just wanted to say, as we're having these conversations, there's also so much you have to think about from a sequencing perspective, because you only have a certain amount of cap dollars and you have other needs, right? So when you're making these potential offers to, let's say, a Zadorov or a Lindholm, you have to map through and plan so many different scenarios of like, okay, if we sign Zadorov at this number and we keep Hronek, then how much money do we have left over for our forwards? Oh, that probably means we can't afford Lindholm. Who could we target in terms of a winger to potentially play with Pettersson? Versus there's other scenarios you have to map out in okay, what if we keep Zadorov but let Hronek go? We move him. What does that do for our cap space up front? And then the other scenario, which I'm sure we're going to get to, is okay, what if we keep Lindholm, keep Hronek? How much money do we have left to fill out the rest of our blue line? And not just how much money do we have, but who are the realistic targets we can go after on both the free agent and trade market? And this is why it's so difficult. I think one of the most underrated parts of operating as a team in the offseason, when you have multiple needs, when you have cap flexibility, but you're not like swimming in it, is these decisions aren't happening in a vacuum. Every decision you make of like, we're going to keep Zadorov versus we're going to let him walk, we're going to keep Lindholm versus we're going to let him walk, has such a strong trickle-down effect on every other decision you're going to make and every other potential target you may or may not be in on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like planning a wedding list. You got to have multiple lists where this is scenario A, this is scenario B, this is scenario C. It's just like that. Trust me. But you brought up Lindholm. So let's talk about Lindholm, because that's the other bit of news that came out today. Friedman saying that he thinks the Canucks are willing to offer a 7x7 on an Elias Lindholm return. Harman, it's the topic of our poll question that we'll get to in a second, but that walk away number article I did where I said this is the number that the Canucks should walk away from each free agent at, it was 7x7. So if 7x7 is something that the Canucks are saying, this is what we're willing to do, and Elias Lindholm is saying, no, I'm not going to do 7x7. I think I could get more on the open market. That's the number I'm walking away from. I'm not on board with a 7x7 for Elias Lindholm, just when it comes to roster construction. And the way I think about this, Harm, is I know we've had this discussion about why Elias Lindholm, maybe it doesn't make a ton of sense to re-sign him, but at best you're re-signing him to be your third best center, or maybe your second best center in the later years of JT Miller's contract. But right now, your third best center, so he's not necessarily your third line center, but your third best center is what you're signing here. And at worst, I see all these people saying, oh, well, he can just go up and play wing with Elias Pettersson or JT Miller. I'm like, we saw that, and it wasn't good. Like, I know Elias Lindholm was playing through stuff, but it goes back to that conversation you and I had last week, Harm, where it's just, you can't run that risk and say, well, he was hurt, so we think it'll work out this time. You can't run that risk when you're paying this much for a player. I'm totally against signing Elias Lindholm at a 7x7.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It would really worry me. And again, for me, it's the declining offense, because I love what Lindholm brings to the table defensively, what he does killing penalties from a matchup perspective, positionally away from the puck. He is so smart. He is so cerebral, but I just don't think he drives enough offense. We're talking about 2 straight years since his career high season with Gaudreau and Kachuk, where his numbers have taken a significant hit offensively. Again, we're talking about a player that only had 23 5-on-5 points over 75 games this season, which is the same number as Sam Lafferty and Teddy Bluger. Ilya Mikheyev had 7 more 5-on-5 points, and it wasn't in the regular season just a case of, well, he's creating a lot of chances and his line's underlying numbers are terrific. He's just been unlucky. There was a huge drop-off in his line's ability to control play, to create offense, and even just through the eye test watching him play, he's not a dynamic puck carrier. He isn't a flashy or particularly effective playmaker. His best skill set offensively is almost off the puck as a finisher. And even that aspect, it didn't, like, I honestly looked at that part of his game and went, that should still be a fit if he's with an elite player like a Pettersson or a Miller. And like you alluded to, it didn't quite mesh. So for me, I'm just worried about him not being able to live up to the offensive side of a 7x7 extension.
Okay, now I wanted to find the actual numbers because I think it's interesting, because I talked about how Elias Lindholm played with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. He spent 34 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time with JT Miller, so that was definitely a small sample size. But like, those two weren't very good together when they played, and that's why it was a small sample size. But they tried that. And then with Pettersson, like, it was a pretty sizable sample size. Like, I'm pretty happy with, 97 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time together in the regular season. I'm pretty happy seeing that, and I think it's safe to say that didn't work. Like, when the Canucks traded for Elias Lindholm, it was to play with Elias Pettersson. That was all the conversations at All-Star Week. From Rick Tocchet himself was talking about pairings and how he wanted to put Pettersson with Lindholm together. It didn't work out, and we know Pettersson wasn't himself. We know Lindholm was banged up. I just don't think it's worth running that risk on a 7x7. Like, you can't run that risk. I don't think you can.
Yeah, there wasn't a single team in the NHL this season that had that was paying 3 centermen $7 million or more. I think Buffalo is an example of a team that was facing a similar dilemma heading into this offseason, that got ahead of it and said, well, we can't afford to be in that situation, because they had Tage Thompson and Dylan Cousins locked up long term on high cap hit extensions. Casey Middlestat, who had been one of their best forwards this season, they looked at his RFA status at the end of the season, how he has arbitration rights, how he's going to be in line for a substantial raise, and basically said, from a roster construction standpoint, yes, Middlestat is one of our best forwards, but we can't afford to pay 3 centermen big ticket contracts. They went away from that. The closest examples I can think of are the Kings, where they have been paying Kopitar, Deneau, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, but clearly I don't know if the LA Kings are a roster construction model that you want to be following. You could point to the Islanders, right? Because they have Bo, they have Barzal, and they have Brock Nelson. Nelson is a $6 million cap hit. That's why he's not three centers, making $7 million or more. But even in the case of the Islanders, they were able to shift Barzal to the wing, and Barzal and Horvat have been a terrific fit. That's kind of how they solved it. So I'm just not sure that that's the direction the Canucks should go down, even though it's so easy to look at what Lindholm did in the playoffs and want to bring him back.
Okay, so it's the topic of our poll question. Let's get to it. Our poll question today is brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, there it is. Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. Okay, Harm, we asked the people what they think about the Canucks signing Elias Lindholm to a 7x7. The majority, 56.2% of the vote, say they would not be okay with that. 43.8% say yes. Elias Lindholm seems like he wants more than this. 7x7, 56.2% of people saying they are not comfortable with the Canucks signing that. I just think there's other options out there, and it's the reasons I laid out earlier that you just don't know what that's going to look like if it doesn't work out with him being your third center. And if you want him to go play the wing, you just don't know. You don't have enough of a sample size to confidently say, yeah, this is going to work out. But to that argument, like I'll make an argument against it. You don't know that with any free agent that you're going out to get, right? You don't know that. You have to, trust your pro scouting and trust that a guy's going to mesh with another player. Look at Louis Eriksson. Like, he meshed well with the Sedins at those world championships and all on the international stage. And then obviously it didn't work out in Vancouver. So it's just something to keep in mind. I just don't know if Elias Lindholm at 7x7 is something that I'm running to sign.
Yeah, I'm there with you for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That was our poll question, brought to you by Bet365. Now, let's get to a quick word from the BC government. And on the other side, we're going to make our picks for the DFO parlay game. And then we've got a cup final preview for you. For a word from helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. We've all heard of the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis, but did you know that it affects men disproportionately? Last year, 78% of people dying here in BC were men, and the majority were 30 to 59 years old. It's not easy to struggle with addiction, and the stigma around it can make it harder for people to reach out for help. But there is help and support available. Every journey is different, and the thing that helps might not be the same for everyone. So when someone does reach out, be compassionate and have open, non-judgmental conversations. We here at Canucks Conversation want to be part of the solution. So if you or someone you care about is struggling, you can find supports and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. You can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on the Help Starts Here website.
You muted, Quads.
There it is. Okay, let's play it. Let's play the game. Folks, you can go play the game at games.dailyfaceoff.com. Of course, we were talking about the Daily Faceoff Playoff Parlay Challenge. The Cup Final starts tomorrow. Harm, who you got in Game 1? You got Florida at -140, Edmonton at +115.
Well, I think Florida's going to win the series, so I feel like got to set the tempo with the Panthers.
Okay, Panthers over or under 5.5 total goals in the game?
You know what? I'm leaning under.
Interesting. I like it. I like it.
I'll walk you through. Basically, I think a big part of the formula for Florida winning is going to be Barkov slowing McDavid down. And if that's the case, it's more likely to be a lower scoring game. I know the Panthers can be explosive offensively, but they're also a juggernaut defensively. So that's why I'm leaning towards the under.
Okay, Oilers, Panthers. Who's going to score the first goal in Game 1?
What are you thinking?
I'm going Florida. Florida's going to open scoring. Highest scoring period is going to be the second period.
Sure, yeah.
Alex Barkov, total assists. If we're picking Florida, we're going with over. He's getting one.
Yeah.
He's getting one assist.
Yeah.
Okay. Connor McDavid, are we going to be haters, or are we going to say under one assist or over? What's he getting?
So he just needs an assist?
An assist.
I'll say he gets one.
Yeah, it's a good bet. And Zach Hyman, total goals. Does he get one or no?
No.
No. I like it. Sam Reinhart already answered it for you. He is scoring a goal. Folks, you can go play the game yourself, win yourself some gift cards, and each week's winners pocket cash. Go check it out, games.dailyfaceoff.com. Okay, now what's next? We got so much on today's show. It's a lot of fun. Oh yeah, Cup Final Preview, which was brought to you by the DFO Survivor game. Not Survivor, DFO Playoff Parlay, which I brought up already. Okay, Harm. Playoff Cup Final Preview. It's all come down to this. You say Florida is going to win this series.
Yeah, I think they're slight favorites. I think they're a deeper team. I think they have a better blue line. you could say that, well, Dallas was a deeper team and they had a better blue line than Edmonton, and it didn't do them any favors in the Western Conference Final. And that's a fair point. But I also have for a long time looked at Florida as one of the top teams in the East. They have such a combination of speed, skill, physicality, and being hard-nosed defensively that I think they are slight favorites. Now, when I look at this series and what's going to dictate who's going to win, I touched on it a little bit earlier. Barkov versus McDavid. I'm super interested to see the matchup there. Connor McDavid is all world, but this is the toughest centerman that he's had to play against in terms of a guy who's going to be shadowing him. Barkov was excellent in round 1, shutting down Nikita Kucherov at 5-on-5. He was excellent on David Pastrnak in round 2. He was excellent in round 3 against the Rangers top guys. Now, of course, you could also look at the flip side and say, well, McDavid is by far the toughest test Barkov has had. And that's why it's so interesting. Neither one of these star players has faced an opponent of the same caliber. This is a totally different challenge for both guys. And this is going to matter not just at 5-on-5, but especially on the penalty kill, because Florida's PK has been rock solid this entire way through. 88%. It's been a juggernaut. Last round against the Rangers, for instance, it held up pretty well against a New York power play that is one of the best in the NHL. It's going up against an Oilers power play that we know is probably the best of all time. So it's not just 5-on-5. It's also Barkov versus McDavid at on special teams as well. That's going to have such a huge impact on the series.
Okay, now, Harman, I want to ask you about the matchup specifically, because we know Paul Maurice doesn't necessarily like doing the hard match thing, but this feels like a situation where he's almost going to have to, right?
I would absolutely try and get Barkov out there as much as possible against the McDavid line. He's been so, like, forget even just the idea of quote unquote like shutting the opposition's best players down. Just watching these playoffs, I know a lot of people have been pointing to, oh, Matthew Tkachuk has had a terrific postseason, and yeah, he's piled up some points, but game in, game out, especially in that Rangers series, Barkov has been so dominant as a play driver. It's not just that he is going to be looking to defend. He has been so good offensively, like better than the point totals would indicate. The number of chances that he's generated, he's so smooth, he's so cerebral. Once he has the puck and carries it in, it's impossible to push him off of it. And that's going to be a big part of even the way you're going to slow McDavid down is forcing McDavid to defend and creating more offensive zone shifts. So yeah, 100%. If I'm Florida, I want Barkov out there as much as possible, not even from like a prevent defense perspective of we just want to hold on and hang on, but even from the perspective of this is our best line at 5-on-5. Let's take it to them power on power, and who knows, maybe we can even during a couple of games in the series win that matchup, not just break even.
Okay, who's got the advantage in goal? I think it's pretty decisive. The Florida Panthers have the advantage when it comes to the defense.
Yeah, Panthers have a better blue line. Forsling has been outstanding. Goaltending is it's a mystery box, right? Bobrovsky is capable of stealing a series, but he also had moments in the Rangers series, especially early on, where I was like, he could definitely be playing a bit better. Whereas with Skinner, same thing. Who knows what version of Stuart Skinner is going to show up? Is it going to be the version of him that had a 923 against Dallas and outplayed Jake Onger, or is it going to be the version in the Vancouver series that got chased and nearly single-handedly lost the Oilers that series? I think from a stylistic perspective, one of the biggest questions that I am intrigued to get an answer to is, can Edmonton's blue line handle the speed and tenacity of Florida's forecheck? The Panthers are one of the best teams in the NHL, not only at creating off the rush, but how physical they are, how quickly they close on guys. They apply so much up ice pressure. Their defensemen are so aggressive, pinching up the walls. It can be so difficult to break the puck out against them. That's part of the reason why the Panthers stifle teams defensively. do you have confidence that Edmonton's blue line can break the puck out? Do you have confidence that Edmonton's wingers are effective enough on the walls to break out cleanly against the Panthers? That's a big reason why I give Florida the edge at 5-on-5. Is I just think from a stylistic perspective, I like the matchup of Florida's forecheck against Edmonton's inconsistent breakouts.
I like this. This from Conversation regulars in the show. Two of the more inconsistent goalies in the league, but both guys have high ceilings. Harmon, I think this is going to be a very, very entertaining Stanley Cup final. Anything else that you wanted to get to on the Cup final? Like, how did we get here? Especially when we look at those Florida Panthers.
I mean, Florida's just so deep, so physical, so skilled. I think when we look at them big picture, a lot of people will debate, oh, well, Florida, Tampa Bay, Vegas, these teams that have no state income tax. Oh, what an advantage that they've had. Of course, they're competitive year in, year out. But I think that overlooks, like, to me, there's the stat about, oh, X number of teams without a state income tax have made the Cup final. It's a lazy narrative, right? To me, Florida, Vegas, and Tampa Bay are elite teams because they have exceptional front offices, right? Do we ever talk about how the Seattle Kraken have no state income tax? Do we ever talk about how the Nashville Predators have the advantage of no state income tax? Who was talking about Florida having this state income tax advantage when Dale Talon was running the show, right? And I think when we look at Florida, why they've been able to emerge as one of the best teams in the NHL, it's because they're better than every team in the NHL at finding project players and turning them into stars, right? Gustav Forsling, waiver wire pickup. He's now a top 10 to 15 defenseman in the NHL. Sam Bennett was a bottom 6 grinder with the Calgary Flames, was playing the wing more than he was center. They acquire him. Now he's a high-end second-line center. Carter Verhaeghe was a nobody when the Florida Panthers signed him in free agency. He was a 40-goal scorer last year, had 34 goals again this year. Sam Reinhart was a 60-point player in Buffalo. Acquire him. He's now a 57-goal scorer. Brandon Montour, the Sabres acquired him as a sort of reclamation project. Didn't work out there. Montour had his third stop in Florida, went from not even a consistent top 4 defenseman to top pair caliber guy on your second pair. Even further down the lineup, like Nico Mikkola was a third pair guy in St. Louis. He's now a really effective second pair presence, sort of their Radko Gudas replacement. Even heck, look at OEL, right? It was a disaster here in Vancouver, goes to Florida and is able to sort of resurrect his career. So to me, what should be studied with the Panthers is how are they getting more from some of these players than anybody else, especially on that back end, right? They basically built a back end from scraps. They found top 4 defensemen left and right out of nowhere, which is so uncommon around the NHL.
I'm looking around, and I mean, first of all, I didn't know Washington State had no state income tax, so I'm going to use that argument all the time, especially talking about the Mariners, but the Kraken too. Like, yeah, this idea that, yeah, the no state income tax, just build your teams better. Just build your teams better. And it's funny that it always comes out of Toronto, but anyways, we're not going to get into all that. Did you have anything else on the Cup final that you wanted to get to before we get to anyone else?
No, let's get to anyone else.
All right, let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians, who are on the road, but will be back for a big homestand starting next Tuesday, June 11th, and it's the dog days of summer. Bring your pup to the park and let them soak in the atmosphere at Nat Bailey. Don't miss the Nooner at the Nat on Friday the 14th, which includes a rain-out doubleheader against Spokane. And don't miss Family Fun Sunday on Father's Day, June 16th. Catch fireworks, giveaways, Friday Nooners, and Superstar appearances all spring and summer long. To get your tickets, call 604-872-5232 or go to CanadiansBaseball.com. Okay, let's get to anyone else. Get your anyone else's in, folks. We had one here. Where is it? Yeah, conversation. Who has the week off helped more, the Oilers or the Panthers? I say the Oilers, since their top guys were closer to the end of their rope and are more likely to be overpaid. Overplayed, I think he meant to say. He said overpaid, which is funny, but I think he meant overplayed. I agree. I think it's the Oilers. I think the Oilers benefit more from this week off.
Yeah, I think so too. But also, sometimes rest can be tricky because I remember looking at how deep the Edmonton series went in Vancouver, 7 games, how how fatigued McDavid, Draisaitl, Ekholm looked. Clearly, those guys weren't 100%. I was thinking to myself, man, Dallas has had all this time off since they took care of their playoff series a little bit earlier. That should be a rest advantage in the Stars' favor, and that didn't really have the type of impact that I thought it might early in the series.
Okay, the other one and anyone else, there's a lot of conversation in the chat about Elias Pettersson, and I get it. Like, people are upset that Elias Pettersson didn't play good down the stretch, but like, let's just not forget what we've seen from him in the 400 plus games we've already seen him play. Just to keep it simple, just to keep it short, the biggest concern I have is that he had a similar slump where he was not great for 3 months, and then he got over it, came out of it, had a really good season after that, and kind of said after that, like, I know what to do now if I get into a slump and how to get out of it. I didn't see that recently. So that's the only concern that I have. But if we're following this pattern, Harm, that means Elias Pettersson's going to have a great year next year. And I'm just going to come out and say it. Like, my prediction is that he's in the 100 to 110 point range next season. Like, I have no problem saying that now. I'll keep saying it in August, keep saying it in July. And all these people crying about 11.6 million. And I have no evidence that Elias Pettersson's worth 11.6 million. They're all going to be wrong when he breaks 100 points. I'm just saying it now, and I'll say it confidently. He's breaking 100 points this season. He's going to be consistent, and everybody's going to have to eat crow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to go deeper on the Pettersson conversation. I feel
it's just dumb.
It's also been exhausting to, like, how much we had to talk about him down the stretch in the regular season and in the playoffs, and there's no reason to be talking about him now. Like, why? Yeah. What's the relevancy at this point?
Yeah, I know. It's silly. Okay. Conversation. Who's the dark horse to take over the Stanley Cup final that isn't a top player? I'm going to give you one, Harm. Stuart Skinner. I'm going with Stuart Skinner. Just Stuart Skinner winning.
Wow.
What are the odds of Stuart Skinner winning the Conn Smythe now?
It's not happening. I feel like if you get chased in a playoff series, you should automatically be disqualified.
He was good in the last round, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. But like, if you nearly single-handedly lost your team the second round against Vancouver, that should almost disqualify you.
Yep, that's fair. Okay.
And also, come on, like,
right now,
McDavid has a chance if he gets 6 more assists, he's gonna break Wayne Gretzky's record for most assists in a playoff run in NHL history. How can you pick anybody other than that if he ends up doing that and the Oilers win?
And I gotta say, like, Connor McDavid, this is the thing that I like about this matchup so much, is it's really entertaining. It's good for the game. It's going to be really good. I think they're going to put up better ratings than any Stanley Cup final in recent memory. Would you agree with that? I think it's natural if a Canadian team's in there that they're going to do that. But I think it's really good for the game, even down south, that the best player in the league is going to be competing for a championship. That's the thing about hockey, is sometimes in this sport, you don't see that, where in other sports, you do see that often, right? Like, I don't follow the NBA very closely, but like, Luka Doncic is the best player in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken, and he's in the final right now. And then you've got this Boston team who's a ragtag group of guys all together. They remind me of the Florida Panthers. So it's almost like you're getting the same thing with the NBA and the NHL. And I say this as somebody who doesn't know much about the NBA, but that's what I see, is just Boston's the better team. Dallas has the better top end talent. So I don't know. It's interesting seeing those parallels between the two sports.
Maybe, but I mean, I'm no NBA expert either, and I know Doncic is amazing, but I don't know. Is there really a huge drop off between him and Jason Tatum? Like,
I don't know who Jason Tatum is.
You don't know who Jason Tatum is? Come on, man.
Oh yeah, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay, yeah, I do. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
I don't think it's like, for as amazing as Barkov is, there's a significant discrepancy between McDavid and Barkov as offensive players, whereas I don't know if the difference is as large between Luka and Tatum. I know there's some difference, but
which team is Kyrie Irving on?
The Mavs.
Is he still really good or no? Last time I watched basketball,
I think he bounced back. I think he's bounced back this year.
Okay, if there's one basketball fan in the chat, please let us know. Now we're going off the rails, and now I'm starting to look up point totals for these guys. I don't even know how to answer your question. First of all, I had to think about who Jason Tatum was. Didn't know it off the top of my head, and I should have. But anyways, yeah, this is this is good. Hachiroku in the chat. Quads only knows who Channing Tatum is. That's true. Like, if you ask me to name people with the last name Tatum, Channing Tatum, boom, no problem. I don't know any. Well, I know Jason Tatum, but anyways, 21 Jump Street was a great movie. And Sniper with the 2022 Jump Street reference, saying you mean Jeff, one of the great moments in the history of film. Okay, people are still arguing about Pettersson. We're not going to get into it. But anyways, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. People.
Oh, by the way, the dark horse to take over the Stanley Cup final that isn't a top player. I look at Sam Bennett, man. How much of an X factor he can be offensively. He's not just a brute force guy, right? This is what I've come to appreciate the more I watch Bennett play. Is there's legit grace and skill to the way that he handles the puck. His playmaking vision is better than I thought, especially off offensive zone entries. It really struck me in the playoff run last year. And on top of that, he can crash in that, play on the inside, score that way too. Plus, I'm excited to see if he can drive any of Edmonton's players nuts.
Okay, so we've got some basketball fans in the chat who are telling us about basketball, but on the same topic that you just said, where I said Stuart Skinner, conversation, guy gets engaged and loses half his brain cells. Skinner to win the Conn Smythe, LMAO. Okay, now let's go to the Conn Smythe odds brought to you by Bet365. This isn't our Bet365 bet of the day, Grady, so don't worry about putting on the graphic. But these are who we're getting these odds from, is our partner Bet365. Right now, Stuart Skinner has the 10th best odds at winning the Conn Smythe at plus 5,000. That being said, down there at number 12, 12. Sam Bennett at plus 10,000 odds to win.
Neither of those guys are winning.
Okay. Stuart Skinner has better odds, Harm.
I said neither of those guys are winning. I don't care who has better odds.
Dude,
if you're betting on those guys, you may as well burn money.
Goalies win the Conn Smythe.
McDavid may break Gretzky's record for assists in a single playoff run, and you're telling me about Stuart Skinner?
Yeah, Connor McDavid is at plus 190 odds to win the Conn Smythe. He is the heavy favorite to take home the
Skinner
award.
has an 897 save percentage in these playoffs.
No, he doesn't. It's higher than that.
According to Hockey DB. No, I see 897 on Hockey DB.
No, you're wrong. It's higher than that.
Look it up for yourself.
Oh, you're right. It is fun. Dude, all you need is one big final and everybody forgets. I'm telling you, man.
No, they don't. Maybe you forget.
I forget. Hey, people like me get to vote on these things. So anyways, okay. Do you have anything else that you... Oh, yeah, here. We'll go to this one. Yeah. Okay. 7th Street Dream. Instead of going for the big name winger like Gensel, do you think that the Canucks should target bounce back older guys, try reuniting the Vegas misfit line with Petey? Smith shouldn't cost that much.
Potentially, but I want to shoot higher than Riley Smith for like my big splashy top 6 winger acquisition. To be totally honest, like the idea of targeting, whether it's a veteran or two as a potential bounce back option, that should be when we're looking at this forward lineup and you recognize the need for multiple top 9 wingers, ideally that you're adding. Like, sure, that might make sense as a secondary target, but I don't want that to be the big splash of like, hey, this is the running mate for Elias Pettersson, right? Like, to me, Riley Smith, I like him a lot as a player, but especially given his age, I don't look at him as an exciting option as this guy's really going to elevate and bring the absolute best out of Pettersson. Is he going to be a sizable upgrade on Eli Mikheyev? Absolutely, but I want to aim higher than Riley Smith, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And I do like the idea of shooting high. It's just, hey, it comes down to the scenarios, right? Like, it comes down to, okay, if we do this, that means it's going to have this trickle down effect. There's a ton of options, and that's what makes this Canucks offseason so interesting right now. So is there anything else? Okay, here we go. Yeah, there's one more. No, yeah, this is a good one from Conversation. This is a question I've actually been asked before. A serious question. Are you allowed to place prop bets on who will win a trophy that we get to vote on the winner for? We do not. You cannot vote. You can't bet on an award that you can make or impact the outcome of. Like, sometimes, and like, I don't tell anybody, but like sometimes I'll have friends be like, who you like for the Norris this year? I'm like, I don't even tell people like who I like as defensemen during the year, because I take it pretty seriously. I'm not dude, you're not going to get me in a Shohei Ohtani interpreter situation. Definitely not. Trust me, that ain't happening. But people were asking about the odds for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who I brought up before, had plus 10,000 odds or something like that. He's not even listed. You can
wonder why.
Oh, whatever, Harm. You can request.
Playing a third pair role. He's been good. He was great in the regular season. Awesome soldier, and I'll be really happy for him if he wins the Stanley Cup. But looking up Oliver Ekman-Larsson or like Stuart Skinner or Conn Smythe odds is literally pointless. It is a waste of time.
Gustav Forsling plus 6,600. Worse odds than Stuart Skinner. Just throwing that out there, Harm.
Wow, that's blasphemous. Forsling won't win. He doesn't really have a chance either, but he has been unbelievable in these playoffs, just commanding the game from the back end.
Just like Stuart Skinner in Dallas, some might say. But anyways,
dude,
we'll close it out there.
By the way, I just have to say, it took you one playoff series to completely, like, I remember not too long ago, I mean, basically for this entire regular season, from day one, you just bashing Stuart Skinner. And I was like, yeah, Quads is the biggest Stuart Skinner hater I know. To now you're like, you love Stuart Skinner more than Oilers fans.
Dude, he's my boy. And look, it started the season. You can go back and look it up.
He was not your boy.
No, he wasn't. But dude, sometimes your boys aren't always your boys, right? Sometimes they slip up. Sometimes they let in some bad goals. And you say, you know what? You're no longer my boy, but now you're my boy again. That was a good series against Dallas. I'm telling you now, Harm, and I hate to say it, but when Stuart Skinner wins the Conn Smythe, it's gonna be a huge "I told you so" segment on Canucks Conversation. Hate to say it. Do
you want to make a bet?
No, definitely not. But if you do, folks, you can go over to Bet365. Be sure to use our code VANBONUS. Here's our bet of the day. Harm, we are looking at the Toronto Blue Jays and the Oakland Athletics game. I cooked this one up, and I'm going to be right about this one too. I cooked this one up. At plus 1,000 odds, you can get Miguel Andujar to hit a home run against Chris Bassett, or any Toronto Blue Jays pitcher for that matter. Miguel Andujar to hit a home run tonight is what we're going with at plus 1,000 odds. Harm, I'll tell you my logic here. I'm looking at patterns. Just like I'm looking at patterns for Elias Pettersson's season, I'm looking at patterns. Miguel Andujar had a late start to his season. He got hurt in spring training. He was dominant in spring training, but then he came back late May, hit a homer against the Tampa Bay Rays on the 28th of May. Okay, 3 RBI game. Then he's kind of quiet for 4 games. Then he has a 4 RBI game with another homer against the Atlanta Braves, against Chris Sale, by the way. How you doing? Now he's gone without a homer in his past 4 games. I'm following the pattern. Tonight, Chris Bassett's on the mound. Chris Bassett's had struggles this year. Miguel Andujar of the Oakland Athletics to hit a home run tonight is our Bet365 bet of the day. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. So go put a bet on Stuart Skinner to win the Conn Smythe. Responsible. All right. We'll close it out there for my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Grady Sass. My name is Dave Guajelli. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of the Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.